Simon, that penalty that was awarded to Brighton, Joao Pedro, the incident with Joao Pedro and the Saliba when Brighton played Arsenal, the penalty was awarded, and despite a chorus of ex-pros such as Gary Lineker, Martin Keown, Danny Murphy, who said that penalty was wrongly awarded, apparently it was the right decision, because this was the head of the PGMOL, Howard Webb, on the Mic'd Up show.
What you see in this situation is two players going towards a ball that's in the air. Pedro flicks it up. Him and Saliba go to head that ball. Pedro heads it. He heads it onto Saliba's head. Saliba doesn't head it. Saliba has the ball flicked onto his head, but then continues into the head of Pedro. So he gets there late on Pedro. And then Pedro goes down. So it's a late contact by a player who hasn't played the ball himself. The ball's touched him, but he's not played it. And Pedro goes down in the penalty area. So when you break it down in that way, it's a foul. And I know that it has split opinion, but I've also heard lots of people see it in that way, just as a late contact by a player who's failed to head the ball and has made contact with an opponent in the penalty area.
If only you'd used Howard's words on Match of the Day, then us football people, or should I say non-football people, would have been enlightened. But you didn't. Never a penalty in a million years. It was a coming together.
Well, it's interesting now he hasn't described the Kulusevski-Gordon one, or we haven't heard that, or I haven't heard it, because...
That's wonderful. That's whataboutery.
No, but it's bizarre because that was even worse, and they said that was a coming together.
Sure, but you guys that have said this wasn't a penalty, when you listen to Howard Webb's breakdown a bit, does that change your viewpoint?
No,
okay.
And the reason it doesn't is because week in, week out, we see exactly what you just said happen, and they don't give penalties.
Like, when else did you see this?
Well, you tell me.
I mean, given Arteta said he's never seen anything like it in his life.
Exactly.
Right. How is it week in, week out? Everyone else sees it then?
Well, we spent all day thinking of another head clash where there's a penalty been given. So he's talking about a delay, one of them heading the other one, which happens every week in the Premier League, and we never see a penalty. So why have they made an exception?
But it wasn't a head
one?
clash.
It was a head clash.
Saliba missed the ball.
They clashed heads, Jim. That's why the penalty was given.
But you're making it out. Yeah, it didn't happen that way, Danny. I can visualize.
There's not been another penalty given for a head
Howard
collision.
Described it.
But what difference does it make?
It's absolutely spot on.
I understand the point you're making, but it's like suggesting a badly timed tackle in the penalty box is an intention to get a ball, but he mistimed it, so it's a penalty. He mistimed. He went through. The ball was flicked off the attacking player's head onto the player of the central defender, who then followed through afterwards and took the player out.
Two players genuinely go for a ball. And
but
both
one gets it.
Both head the ball. One heads it before the other.
Yeah.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
So they both head the ball, both genuinely going for the ball. Right?
Yeah.
One heads it before the other, then they have a clash of heads.
Sure.
That happens every weekend, more or less. So do you think the penalty had been given if Saliba had gone down holding his head, or do you think he'd have gone, oh my God, there's a head collision, get the physios on? They wouldn't have given the pen. They've never done it before.
They wouldn't give a penalty to...
They've never done it before.
Saliba went down holding his head.
They wouldn't have given a pen.
I'm not following you. If Pedro doesn't go down, he moves forward with the ball or has an opportunity somewhere else.
He's never getting the ball.
Possibly.
Saliba didn't get the ball.
Two people colliding.
But that's the point.
Okay, so why answer this one question. Why have we never seen a penalty in how many years we've been watching Premier League for two people colliding heads? Because one always has to get there before the other and head the ball.
Do you not think that football people of today realise why it was a penalty?
I can understand
and football
why.
people in the past, such as you, Keown, Lineker, are kind of living in the past.
No, because I think some people who are my age and older think it's a pen. So I don't think it's an age.
But
I don't think it's age.
Non-football people, we agreed on that, and we think it was a pen.
Okay. Do you want to see?
We agree with Howard.
Well, I agree.
Do you want to see two people tackle on the floor or heads? Do you want to see two players genuinely going for a ball?
Yes.
And you can see it's genuine.
Yeah.
Two people going for a ball who collide. Do you want to see penalties given for that? Generally,
no.
So would Kulusevski and Anthony Gordon
do I want to see players hauling one another down inside in a penalty box and penalties not being given? Possibly not, because I think shirt pulling and people holding one another in penalty boxes is ridiculous, but
Agreed.
it goes on.
Agreed.
The challenge is that the rules are what they are, and what we listened to was a stampede of opinions that were basically going after VAR and basically going after the referees. Now, I don't have a strong enough view about. I kind of concur with your viewpoint that these things happen, and was it really a penalty? I'm on the edge of that one. What I'm not on the edge of is what does the rules say, because I'm sick and tired of expertise going after referees and going after VAR based upon what they feel subjectively it shouldn't be, rather than what the bloody rules say.
Yeah, so that's a great point, and I think this one is a difficult one because of that.
Yeah.
So the interpretation of the rules and the law on this one can be...
Go after the rules. If the law is an ass, the law's an ass, right?
Yeah.
But stop it with those. I'm not trying to defend referees for the ridiculous decisions that they make at times and the poor standards that they exhibit. But let's have it right. When you've got all these talking heads, these leading voices that are going after and blaming VAR and blaming the referee, blame the rules.
I think once the
rules.
penalty was given on field, I didn't think it was going to be overturned. And that's because when you read the rules...
Because it was a penalty.
But Keown was then saying, in the studio, the reasons why is because the refereeing fraternity get together and one senior referee won't step on the toes of another. No. So you can never win an argument in this decision.
So on this one,
Jim... It was on the ground, Danny. Say it was on the ground.
Yep.
And swap the head for the feet. Pedro gets the ball ahead of Saliba.
And Saliba touches the ball.
And Saliba touches Pedro's leg. And Pedro goes down. Penalty.
Well, it's an impossible comparison because what you're actually saying... No, let me...
That's the exact event.
Pedro gets the ball with his foot, and then it hits Saliba's foot in the same tackle.
And then Saliba goes through him.
Yeah.
Is that a penalty?
Depends.
Danny, why?
But why?
If he knocks the ball past Saliba and away past him, Saliba's foot touches the ball, and then Saliba cleans him out.
Well,
would that be a penalty?
That's exactly the same as some real examples that have happened this season where penalties have been given and haven't.
That would be a penalty, wouldn't it?
It depends. We've seen them not given this season.
Put aside the subjectivity of a referee making a decision. In your view, in the instance of a player engaging contact, knocking the ball footwise against another player, and then the player going through him, would you then say it's a penalty?
Depends on the velocity of how the follow through.
Danny.
No, that's the rules.
But there was velocity in this.
In whose opinion? Yours?
Well, in reasonable opinion. In a reasonable set of circumstances, it's reasonable to assume there was an element because the player was travelling.
So my view is this.
He's not a lightweight, is he, Saliba?
My view is this.
Saliba went to head the ball.
My view is...
So what did he do? Go in with a little...
The way the laws are written on this subject, I can understand why some refs would give it. I'm simply saying...
I'm not asking referee. I'm asking you and people like you.
I'm simply saying, if it's a penalty, why is it the first time we've seen two players who clash heads going for the same ball? Why is it the first time we've ever seen a penalty?
Did Saliba go down? Because most of the time when you've got two players clashing heads, they both go down.
Yeah.
Right? In this instance, the offensive player that's seeking to gain the advantage has gone crashing down and made a 4-act play out of it, gone down in installments, right? And the central defender has carried on with his game. So that's the reasons why.
That's a factor in refereeing decisions. Of course it is.
Of course it is. So the argument that you're raising is, if we constantly see people have head clashes, when you've got two people laying on the floor as a result of an accidental collision with both trying to win a ball, it's a 50-50 ball, the attacking player in this situation has initially got the advantage because he's got the header.
First.
It's knocked it onto the defensive player. The defensive player's cleaned him out.
We've got one message here. And
I'm
looking at it. What's he saying, Luke? It wasn't a head clash. It was a missed tackle with the head.
Correct.
And that's a difference.
It is.
And that's a penalty.
Every head clash is mistimed. I don't what? Do you think... Here's a question.
Penalty
does any player ever go to headbutt somebody else when they're trying to win a header? It's a completely different comparison to people who... Some people tackle to get the player. Nobody tries to head the ball to headbutt somebody.
All right. Listen.
And the last thing on it, Jim, is this. If Howard says that's a pen, fine. But so is the Kulusevski, Anthony Gordon.
Oh, fine. Okay. Inconsistency is one argument.
Yeah.
Individual.
But you can't have it both ways.
I know you can't, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about what this decision... Okay, the inconsistency is one argument. The failure to make a decision and being argumented and being shouted down by the football fraternity saying it's no way it's a penalty.
It's not a penalty.
But if it were replicated at people's feet, you'd say it was a penalty. And don't give me all that cobblers about what velocity and so on and so forth. That's not the point. The point is, you're not going to measure the velocity. There's a reasonable amount of intent from Saliba to win the ball or try and win the ball. So he's not going in there like Charles Hawktree out of Carry On Screaming, a little bit frightened or something.
The intensity of the follow-through from a tackle on the floor is in the rules written, but the referee's judgment is based on that.
Charles Hawktree.
So no, it's never a pen. Well,
Danny,
it's never been a
you.
pen before, so why is it a pen now?
Thank you for your contribution. Simon's waving to people who are on a guided tour of the building.
It's
penalty given, and that was that.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.